Hello, thank you for joining me today on Minding Your Life with Dr. Blessing. Today I'm going to be talking about a topic that is very, very important because it is an issue that is very prevalent within our society. It is something that affects a lot of individuals. It is something that affects a lot of families, a lot of communities, and it has destroyed a lot of lives in different ways. But also, it is something that a lot of people ask that question. Do we all have some form of addiction in our lives? Because when we look at addiction, it is usually seen as that compulsive behavior, that compulsive way of thinking, something that might be rewarding to us or might be fulfilling something in our lives in a way that we see as important. But at the same time, a lot of times it's also causing harm. It is affecting the way we live our lives. It is affecting a lot of things and causing adverse consequences in our lives, especially in the long term. So addiction can come in so many different forms. It can come in variety of levels and forms. And it is important to look at that in terms of what it is. It is not one or two things in terms of what we look at. And again, a lot of times when we think of addiction, people think about the big bad things, drugs, alcohol, like I said before, gambling, pornography. But today, we also have a lot of issues with people not being able to live without certain things. And not just about that, because when we think about not living with certain things, we think about excess, we think about quirky things, that are happening in our lives. But when do those things, the quirky things, the excess, the things we always say, oh, I can't live without this. When do they become an issue? When do they actually turn into addiction? Let me ask you this question. What are some of the things in your life today that when you really truly think about it, you can't live without? Especially those things that, yeah, you may also kind of know that there might be some side effects from that. There might be certain things about them that really affect certain aspects of your life. It might be your daily functioning, one way or the other. It might be relationships. It might be that you find yourself, you can't even function without that. I know for some people, when they wake up in the morning, they're like, I cannot even start life without a few cups of coffee. I can't even start life without a good caffeine kicking in. And literally, I've seen some people say they have a different kind of personality till those things that they have to do first happens. Again, are we saying that's an addiction? Well, that's a topic for a different discussion. But there are certain things about this that I really want to get into today, and I don't have a lot of time to get into that. And I'm not going to talk about the big stuff that people talk about all the time. There's a lot of videos, a lot of books, a lot of discussions out there about that. But there's one area of this when it comes to how we have certain things in our lives that take up a place, especially again those things that keep causing problems. It's kind of that iceberg. You see that top part, there's some issues with that. They're also pretty, but there's also the bottom part of it, the things that it is hooked onto, that we also have to pay attention to. For all of us, we got to kind of look into our lives and see, is this something that is important to look at? Because, and again, like I said before, in the long run, we may find that it is causing more problems for us, even though there are some rewards that we're getting from it when it's happening. But in the long run, it's causing other kinds of issues for us. A lot of times when we think of addictions, we think about, the addictive behaviors. We think about the thoughts, that are constantly, controlling certain things that we're doing every day. I've seen addictions in terms of technology, in terms of video games, in terms of people, literally, some people wake up in the morning and the first thing they go to is their phone. Not just to, make a phone call or check to see other things in terms of phone calls that have been left for them, but they find themselves straight to the social media, straight to the news, and straight to things that immediately start to bombard their brains over and over again. I've seen some people, again, not only get into that, but get into other things that in some ways are taking a place in their lives for certain things. Again, when we look at addiction, we are looking at some of the things that when things are happening in your life, we immediately go for it. Okay, so again, for some people, it can be the minute they wake up, there is something that they have to hook into. Think about that word. There's something they have to anchor into, hook into, that actually allows them to start their lives. And I'm not talking about God or anything else. I am talking about things in their homes, things right next to them in bed, phone, and other things that they feel like they have to immediately hook into before they can even either get out of bed or start, having relationship with other people. So think about that. And when you're looking at it, how is it giving you reward right away, but also underneath it there are some issues that it is causing that in the long run is not beneficial for you. Again, in a lot of times when we think about addiction, we think about the big bad things, the dirty word, the ones that, when we think about it, the immoral issues. But there are so many different ways and different varieties that we deal with addiction. For some people, addiction can be something that is very debilitating. It can be something that even can lead to death. We see that over and over again. But for others, it is something that we live, it's functioning in our life, and we're doing okay with it. But again, underneath there is some erosion that is happening in our lives because we have those things. It may be affecting, again, our medical, our health. It may also be affecting so many different things. Like I said, I have some people, just as soon as they feel any kind of stress, as soon as they feel anxiety, as soon as they feel like things are bubbling up, they have to run outside and smoke, just to relieve that tension, from what from what they are feeling, and it may give them that immediate reward. But again, in the long run, there are some problems that are being caused by this. So there's a lot of things that are happening in terms of addiction. And there's one area that I definitely want to be able to talk about as we continue. But look at it in terms of what is happening in your life today. What are some of the things, like I said before, that you find yourself hooking into because it helps you get through the day. It helps you really distract you from your life so that then you can get that kind of feeling right away. But at the other side of it, what are some of the costs that it has for you? In terms of addiction, we've kind of talked about, I tend to look at also what are the innate needs that we have, because a lot of times when we are open to certain things that are happening in our lives, when we have stress, when we have, the burdens of life just hitting us over and over again, when we have trauma happening, it really affects what's happening in our lives. It affects the natural way that our lives are supposed to be going, so and with that, it leaves us open. It's kind of like this magnet that attracts all the things that are not good for us. So when it leaves us open like that, if we don't find the healthy things to take care of those things, when we are in pain, any kind of pain, when we are in that kind of pain where something needs to be relieved. I've had some people, and a lot of us know this, especially clinicians, where some people are cutting themselves and doing other things to themselves, not because they want to cut, but they want to be able to take that, the pain that they're feeling from other things that are going on in their lives, the trauma and other stuff, the pain of cutting, it's actually giving them relief. As bad as that is the immediate relief that they're getting out of that. So for some people, again, there are some things in your life that you may be getting that immediate relief from when you go to that thing that may not be healthy for you. And then the more and more and more that you do that, you start getting more and more conditioned to that, and your system starts to crave for that. I've had some people that have told me, "Oh, if I don't get to my social media, or if I don't get to my video game, or if I don't get to the coffee, or if I don't get to this for one day, everything about me reacts to that. I am a different kind of person. My emotions are very different. Even the physiological response to, not having that with me, or not doing that, not thinking that way, becomes too much, that I have to have it. I cannot have any kind of relief. I cannot have any kind of peace without hooking into that." So what are the things that you find yourself hooking into? Are there things in your life that if I tell you today, for the next 1 week, don't go with that, just let it go for 1 week? Can you even find them doing that? Let's say 2 days, 3 days. Can you go without? One day. For some people, even one day is too much for them to go. So how do we see that? What is that, What is that about in your life that, where there are certain things that it becomes very, very difficult not to be able to have. Um, there's, like I said, there's that part also. So we talk about addiction in terms of what's going on biologically, what's going on psychologically, and otherwise. But also, there's socially, there's also another part of it that we don't talk a lot about, but it is extremely important because we are finding more and more, especially during this time that there's this pandemic going on, we are finding more and more that a lot of addiction, a lot of addictive behaviors, a lot of addictive way of thinking, it's happening more and more. And what we're seeing is when there is that issue of not connecting and bonding, in the right way, that becomes problematic, and there's a huge issue with it. There's been a lot of research in so many different ways done about that connection and bonding and how that plays a part in terms of addiction. So it's a big part to think about when you kind of take some assessment about what's happening in your life right now. With this pandemic happening, I know in some parts of the world things are going a little better, but there are some places like where I am here in Southern California where in fact we're just rolling in into another lockdown, or at least they're trying to have that happen. And this is also a time that is the holidays, so people are not only have had it for this several months of not being able to connect to others, but also this is a holiday season that people are not, for the first time for so many people, they are not able to connect with their families and do things that we do usually at Thanksgiving and Christmas. So it becomes very hard for a lot of people. There's a lot of isolation that has been happening this past several months. And with that, there's a lot of disconnection that is happening. There's a lot of a bonding that is being broken. And also there's a lot of issues that are coming up for people that has not been taken care of all these years. Because again, with addiction, we get away from dealing with certain things that are going on in our lives. And we find those things that immediately can, take care of us right away, even if in the long run it's not taking care of us. And we're also abandoning those things that we're supposed to be working on. So if I'm being stressed, if there are things that are happening in my lives and I try to get away from it, run out and go smoke or go drink or get on my social media or do other things, porn or whatever else, that then gives me that feeling, and also get away from it, then we're not dealing with what's happening in our lives. So wait, now that a lot of people have that extra time in their hands and also have to be able not be able to connect with other people, they're finding themselves isolated, they're finding themselves disconnecting from real life or life that they as they know it. A lot of addiction is coming in because then it's leaving them vulnerable, it's leaving them open, it's giving them that pain where they have to do something to take away that pain or to distract them from that pain or from whatever else that is going on. And a lot of times we also do this without even the conscious thought of it. So if you really take some time to think about in your life those things that have been taking those places of really dealing with yourself, taking care of yourself, really dealing with issues, really connecting to others, then you may see that there are certain things we've put in there, or certain things that as we're open, it attracts those people and those things into our lives. And when I say those people, I mean the ones that are unhealthy for you, the ones that get you to certain issues, that you get involved in. So pay attention to that. When we are happy, when we are healthy, when we are connecting with other people, when we are bonding with other people, we notice that we tend to make better decisions about the things that we're getting involved with the way we think, the way we feel, the things that we do that in our lives. When we are feeling great, when we are connecting and bonding, when we are really truly having that connection in a healthy way, we tend to do things in ways that are healthier. But when we can't do that, then we are feeling a lot more isolated, when we are being traumatized, when life is just beating us up like crazy, then we will bond with something. And a lot of times, because it's something natural, that's what our system tends to seek. It has to bond to something, but also it leaves us vulnerable to whatever mess is out there. And it's kind of like moths to the flame, the bad stuff will start sticking to you because it's about, we gotta fulfill those needs. But we look for those things that may not be giving us may not be taking care of us in the long run, but it is, again, like I said before, distracting. It is giving us immediate reward. It is giving us something that makes us feel that we're okay when we're not. And again, a lot of times that relief that is giving us, it's not the right way, it's not the right thing. So we find ourselves, like I said again, gambling, drugs, being addicted to our social media. I've had some people that wake up too many times at night just because they want to check their social media, not because they just woke up. They have to check all those things. But we have to think about it. Our human nature is to bond. We've been doing that since we're in the womb. Our human nature is to connect. What are the things that you're connecting to in your life? What are the hooks in your life? What are the things that are anchors in your life? Especially those things that are not in the long run doing good for you. Those things that are affecting your functioning. It might be very, very small erosions that can continue to grow and grow. It may be things that are affecting your relationship, just subtle. You see those subtle changes, those subtle things that are happening in your relationship over time. And those things are, playing a part in that. You see it in terms of your productivity. You see it in the way that you're feeling. You see it in the way that you're taking care of yourself. You see it in the way that, hey, we're getting busier and busier and busier. And especially when we get busier and we're isolating from people. I see several people at a table and everybody's on their social media. I'm like, why are they not connecting with each other? And we have this thing that we think is the best thing, but it's keeping us away from life itself, from truly living life itself. And a lot of times we are bombarded with it over and over and over again. It's like we're in the world of, fast food now for everything, So be mindful about that in terms of how this continues to disconnect us from truly what is natural, the natural way of living our lives. So now that we have the pandemic where we're being forced to actually live a little bit more naturally, some people are having a lot of issues with that because they don't know how to do that. Even if we have to connect through social media and other ways, how are you doing that in a healthy way? For a lot of people, that is extremely problematic because they don't know how to do that. They don't know how to connect to other people and other things. So we need to kind of be able to plug into the right things, hook into the right things, the things that are healthier, the things that continue the flow of the natural order in our lives, the flow of the natural things that fill our lives, that takes care of issues that we're going through in our lives, instead of withdrawing us from those natural things. So again, addiction can be anything. Yes, we have a lot of things that we do in excess. We have a lot of things that are just quirky behaviors, but we also have to pay attention to that in terms of when that starts to slowly turn into addiction. And like I said, if you find yourself not being able to go for a period of time without certain things, or not being able to start your day without certain things, how are those things affecting you? How are those things changing? I mean, literally, I've seen some people, it's like a totally different person without certain things in their lives that they're so used to. You take that away for a second, that's a problem. So be mindful of that. Again, for a lot of people, it gets to a place where it becomes a matter of life and death. And that can happen to anybody with any kind of addiction, with any kind of issues that they have in their life. So definitely pay attention to that. Again, there's so many different ways it can happen, and it can be very harmful and debilitating. It can cause a lot of problems. I've had some people wake up one day and realize that it has really destroyed their lives, and by the day before, they didn't even realize that. So really pay attention to that. But again, how is pain? How is stress? How is isolated life? How is, natural things in your life not being met, those natural needs not being met? How are those things that you're constantly being spoon-fed in our society, by the media, by all these other things that are happening around you? How are those things affecting you in a way where it is turning into that hook, the unhealthy hooks, the unhealthy anchors that continue to literally control how you live your life? It is very, very important to pay attention to that, because again, those things start to cause a lot of psychological problems, a lot of emotional issues, a lot of health issues in our lives where, I've had some people, I've actually asked them, how many times a day, or how do you find yourself at least one time a day where you can just sit and just be, just being able to tune out and just be. And I have a lot of people that have a hard time doing that. I have a lot of people that have a hard time going for at least an hour without having to check into things or do something. And literally, I watch their behavior and their this physiological response that they have to not having those things for an hour. So pay attention to that. And again, it's hard. And in fact, when I videotape it and show it to them again later, they have a hard time realizing that, seeing that happening to them. So pay attention to things that you have in your life, so that then you're not finding yourself again. This is another part I see a lot of people medicating themselves out of their realities. Again, some of these realities can be bad, but then how do we deal with it? How do we work on it? How do we get the help that we need to deal with it, versus the addictions that we get involved in, that allows us not to be able to really live our lives. The anxiety that we have that comes with it, the mess up life and patterns that we keep seeing in our lives. A lot of times it numbs us, it distracts us, it makes us feel quite different from who we are, and it takes away a lot from us because we are addicted to certain things. And that's again the things that we think we're not addicted to because we don't see it as the big bad addictions that we tend to have out there. So what to do? I heard somewhere somebody said about addiction being about sobriety, that the other side of addiction is sobriety. Truthfully, that's not what it is about. It is part of it. We want sobriety, especially with some of the addictions that we have, but there is something about that connection that's a huge thing. Connection is something that is natural to us. It is something that has always been part of us. That connection we have with different aspects of our lives. That connection that we have with, our higher power and others. And I will talk a little bit more about that in terms of what to do. And also, we're, again, like I said before, we are in that holiday season where things are happening, where we are trying to connect with people. And I see a lot of people get into depression and anxiety at this time because they're not connecting with families. I've seen that in the past, and I've seen it with this pandemic. So, the main thing about that is we need to be able to form some kind of healthy bonds, some kind of healthy connections. Healthy, because a lot of times we connect. Again, remember what I said, hook, anchor. We tend to connect. That's a natural thing. That's just human nature. We have to connect one way or the other. And if we don't do it in the healthy way, if we don't do it in the way that is supposed to be natural and work well, we will hook into something. A lot of times that becomes the unnatural things that we hook into. So we need to be able to form the healthy connections, connect to the people, connect to the things, connect to, whatever it is that has to be healthy, not only right now, not only give you the reward you need right now. Sometimes it may not give you the immediate reward, like some of the things we do that are not healthy. It may not give you the immediate reward, but in the long run, it is much, much better. It is healthier. It prolongs your life. It gives you the joy and the happy, just all that stuff that you need. So, and then we need the people around us that help us not only get through, but also cheer us on and give us rewards in other ways. Rewards is not just one thing. There are so many different ways that we get rewards, and we need to be able to know that. So surround yourself with the healthy people, with the healthy things, and find the different ways that you can get rewards from all those kinds of things. Even just doing certain things that are healthy for you, it's reward enough, at least for that moment. But we gotta be able to really learn what it is about reward. It's not just that we get right away out of something, especially unhealthy stuff. There are so many ways to be able to have value, to see the value in other ways of things happening in your life in a healthy way. So you gotta connect, but you gotta connect in a way that is healthy, so that then you're not connecting to those things that will later bring up more stress, that will bring self-loathing and unworthiness and all that stuff that comes, guilt that comes with it later. We see a lot of that, and for some of us, we see that we get the reward from the unhealthy things right now, and then later it brings all the other ugly stuff with it. You also have to want to connect in other ways. So I'll tell you 3 different ways. I always say, like I've already started talking about, connect with the healthy people. Connect, and everybody has that. Everybody, there's some people there in your life, whether you know it or not, whether they're no longer in a way that they've been in the past. We have healthy people. And you can also form other healthy connections, healthy relationships in your life starting now. But they're always there and available. And you just have to be able to find a way to do that. And if you can do it on your own, we have professionals who will be able to help you, professionals and other people who can be able to help you learn how to form those connections. So you got to connect with that. We also, another connection that is very, very important, and we see this even in a lot of addiction programs, addiction recovery programs, connecting with a higher power, connecting with that power that is bigger than you, that is more than you, that has that value, that has that sense for you. We need to be able to connect with that higher power. That's why we see it in a lot of programs where they emphasize this, because it's extremely important, and it gives you someone that is higher than you, that is greater, someone that gives you that purpose, that focus, and a lot more of what life is supposed to be about. There is something about that, and we have to connect with that. If we don't have that higher power we connect with, it makes it very difficult. So we have to connect to that. What is yours? How are you connecting to that? How important is it in your life? How much do you value that connection with the higher power in your life? How much do you utilize it every single day in your life, especially when that struggle is there? Before we reach out for those things that are unhealthy, how do you connect with your higher power? How do you allow that higher power to do something in your life? How do you allow it to give you that the sense of purpose and more in your life? So it is very, very important. It's also important to connect with your environment. Connect with your environment. There's so many different ways to do that. Connect with your environment. I always talk about our senses. There's a way we use our senses, because that's what we use to connect with what is on the external, the outside. What is it, how you, in fact, sometimes just going out there and just being, letting the sun hit your face, and you feel it tactily. You feel it in terms of what you're seeing, what you're smelling, all that, just connecting, allowing yourself to do that. Connecting in terms of, when we take in from our environment, we also give out. What are you doing that you're contributing to the world, that you're contributing to your community? The things that we actually get involved with in our community can't really play a part in that. So how do you connect with your environment? How do you connect with your surrounding? How do you connect with, what's happening around you? How do you connect with your community? How do you connect with your families? How do you connect with your church, with your, synagogue and all that? How do you connect with your environment, and how can that play a part in that natural thing that we need in our lives to not then hook into the unhealthy things? And finally, how do you connect with yourself? Again, for some people, that can be a really hard thing, because there's so much that has happened in their life that they're trying to get away from, that they're trying to distract themselves from. So that pain, that stress, and because again, remember, stress is not what's happening, that's life. Stress is how we respond to it and how it affects us. So that part, which has to do with us, how do you connect with that? How do you get to know yourself? How do you take care of yourself? And self-care is not just, about bubble bath, though I love me some bubble bath. But there's a whole lot more to that. Connections, the bonds, how we take care of our inner self. How do we take care of our minds? How do we take care of our spirit? How do we take care of our soul? How do we take care of our issues? How do we really take time to get to know us and get to know the things that are happening in our lives, to get to know how we respond to things and how we deal with things and how we, build our strengths. How do we know ourselves? How do we take care of that? How do we nurture ourselves? How do we do things? And at the end of the day, say, great job, you did so well. We can't wait for tomorrow. Now go take care of yourself at home. Go rest, go eat, go do all those stuff to really take care of us. How do we take care of our body? How do we take care of our minds and all those kinds of things? You have to be able to connect with you to be able to do that. So get to know you, get to know how to connect with yourself. And if you can't do it on your own, I'm still encouraging you, please get the help that you need to be able to learn all these things, to be able to connect in a way that will really serve you well, that will take care of you. Because if you don't do that, I promise you, you will connect to the things that are not good for you, that will keep undermining you, that will keep deflating your life, that will keep taking away over and over again, that will get you to a place that we never want to be at. So find a way to start learning how to do it in a healthy way. Find the help that you need. There's a lot of people, a lot of programs, a lot of things in your family, in your environment, in your capacity that you can be able to utilize to get to where you need to be, to take care of yourself. So, addiction. What is it doing in your life? What is your relationship with that? Let's talk about it more. Stay well, be well, take good care of yourself. Have a wonderful holiday. I'll see you in the next video. And don't forget, subscribe, hit the notification button so that then as soon as I do videos, it will get to you, and you'll be notified about that. And please send me questions, send me topics. Let's discuss more about some of these things. All right, take care of yourself. I'll see you soon.